You've come here not alone. You've probably come with your mind. Your mind has come with you. But be thankful because the mind allowed you to come here. Some people didn't make it. A few always cancel at the last minute. I wonder if we should go. No, I don't feel like going. What's the point? Another retreat. Whatever the mind can say. And then you completely believe in whatever thought the mind throws up. Yeah, no, I'm not going. Or maybe I should. Yeah. And with some of you it was touch and go whether you would make it or not. I'm sure it happens. And yet there was a stronger impulse in you to come than the resistance to coming here, which you may have felt also, or which you may feel, even though this is not a long retreat, that you may feel this resistance even while you're here. You may already have felt it. The mind, the thinking mind, the stream of conditioned thinking, the egoic entity that arises out of that, may be looking for an opportunity to get you away from here. From time to time, it may come up. It may focus on something that is not absolutely perfect in your environment, in whatever situation you're in here. Because there's no such thing as a perfect situation. Unless you live in complete surrender to what is, in which case every situation is perfect. Of course, you can always find something that isn't right, that you could complain about. And the mind says, this situation is not as it should be. This shouldn't be, that shouldn't be. Yes, but it is. So you work with the limitations that are here, even here, at a retreat center. Certain limitations, different ones from the ones you find at home. Less privacy perhaps, you can complain about that. Not warm enough. This or that. Person you're sharing the room with is not according to the expectations of the mind. Not spiritual enough. Or even worse, more spiritual than me. Oh, he must have been at it for a long time. So, in any situation, you don't have to wait long before some kind of flaw in the external situation will come up, what looks like a flaw, which means there's a clash between the expectations or demands of the mind and the simple suchness of this moment. And some egos love to be personally offended when these things happen. So how can, to me, it's a personal something. They should, why don't they? He should, she should. She shouldn't, they shouldn't. The weather should be warmer by now. So you observe the talking entity in the head as you're here, which occasionally may try to talk you out of being here, either by physically removing you from here and you run away, or by taking you away from here by absorbing all your attention into a mind stream. And physically you're then still here, and mentally you're somewhere totally different. Past, future, or dreamland. And you can see then that presence, there's no presence, there is an absence. Now, of course, this retreat is not called the art of absence, but the art of presence. But absence does not require art. Absence happens easy enough. So you may detect occasionally yourself becoming absent, which simply means your attention is no longer here, it's being drawn into a stream of thinking. And usually can tell easily by looking at a person whether they are present or absent. Of course, there are degrees of absence. You can be totally absent, which means you don't hear a single word. Or you can be absent in the sense that you are commenting on what you hear, which means you're not really fully absorbing. You are more interested in your own standpoint, opinion, or mental position than in what is being said. And often you believe that your standpoint is, of course, the right one. There's identification with the mental position. And that's a form of absence also. It's not total absence, but you're not really fully here. That may happen, for example, to people who are very knowledgeable about spiritual matters, have read lots of books, which can become a hindrance too, if you carry them in here. So if you feel the impulse to leave here, that's of course another way the mind may succeed in getting you away from here. If you can, don't just run off at the first thought that comes into your head with an accompanying emotion of disgust or whatever. Back home to my privacy, my own bed. Why did I leave that? I could be more peaceful there than can I be here. And the moment you get home, you say, I should never have left. I failed. And the torture continues. But in all of you, something is arising that is a relatively new thing. At least the fact that it's arising on a wider scale now is a relatively new thing on the planet, and that is a state of consciousness that we could call presence. And to deepen that, that's why we're here. To deepen the ability to be fully present with what is. The ability to respond to life, which is now, always now, out of that state of presence, not out of conditioned mind stuff, conditioning of the mind. Sometimes I use strange expressions like, you grow in presence, presence grows in you, presence arises more fully. Excuse me, says a mind somewhere, you haven't defined presence yet. I don't understand what you mean. In the course of the retreat, you may get a few definitions, a few pointers. Never enough to satisfy the mind, of course. Especially as regards presence, because through thought you cannot possibly grasp what presence is. Because thought is always grasping at concepts. And then, I've got it now. I've defined it. There it is. I've given it form. But presence is vast. It has no form. Each thought is a thought form. It's born and then it goes, or it sticks around for a while. Or it takes over for a while. So every thought is a little entity, a little being, temporary energetic entity. So I'm not right now defining presence because it is unnecessary. As you sit here, presence deepens, because presence is, to a large extent, the unspoken dimension of this gathering. If you're here thinking that the words that are being spoken are the central point of our retreat, that would be an error. That's not the case. The words are secondary. What else is there? And you may notice the mind is always waiting for the next word. Or it's busy thinking about the last one. Is it possible to be here without thinking about the last word and without waiting for the next one? And without going to sleep? Because that's one way of not thinking about the last and not waiting for the next. But that's not the way here. You can do that at home. You can fall below thinking at home easily. A couple of drinks, TV. You're drifting towards unconsciousness gradually. And it may feel a little better than the torture of your mind. There too there is some relief from the daily torture of the mind, yes? But that's not the way we are going. It's not the way back to the animal realm, the nature realm, the mineral realm. You can go all the way back. And it's wonderful for the animal realm in itself. It has a perfection that the human realm does not have. Even the mineral has a perfection that the human does not have, because humans are transitional beings. They are neither one nor the other. So we are not here in an attempt to fall below thinking, but to rise above thinking, so to speak. We are not becoming less awake, less alert, less alive, but more alert, more awake, more intensely alive. So here you have the level of thinking. It's been the human dimension for thousands and thousands of years. Below it you have the dimension of no thought, instinctive no thought, natural no thought. And above it you have the dimension of presence. You have transcended thought. How? By not thinking about the last word, and not waiting for the next one, and not even trying to work out what I've just said. Not making presence into some new thought form. Can one live like that in a state of relaxed alertness, which is presence? Not the state of alertness that comes from mind and ego, which is not real alertness, which is really a state of fearful tension. No. It's open, not closed, completely open. And you're able to look, to hear, to feel, to touch. Sense perceptions against a background of stillness, which is another aspect of presence. Alert stillness. Sense perceptions happen here. And when you're not thinking about the last moment or looking to the next one, then after you've heard a sentence, a string of words, there's simply spacious stillness. Just as in the speaker, this form sitting on a chair, there's the stillness between the words. I don't know what the next word is going to be, how could I know? And there's no need to know. You may have noticed already, we don't have an agenda here, a big folder which tells you what we're going to do, because we're going to get through these 20 points. In other words, there seems to be a lack of structure. And that is true. There is a lack of mind-made structure, and yet a different kind of structure is growing organically out of the present moment, and it knows where it's going. So you may have realized already how important the stillness is in this room, the external stillness, which we could call silence, and there's a lot of it, despite the words. And the inner stillness. What does that mean, inner stillness? It means, and this is the secret, consciousness, conscious, without thought. A state of great intelligence. Not that thought is not going to operate ever again, but that becomes your home, the foundation, what you're rooted in is that dimension of inner stillness that is there in the background. It is the background to everything that happens. And that's already in you, of course. But most humans are so identified with what happens in the foreground of their existence. Sense perceptions, events, experiences, thoughts, emotions. Everything that happens externally draws you, the world does that. This matters. And then you believe that it matters absolutely. And then the next thing matters even more. And then the phone call comes along. This is really serious. And mostly every thought likes to matter. Take me seriously, says every thought. Think. And even psychologists who are not interested in presence or anything like that have examined the human mind and realized that 99% of our thinking is totally repetitive. And yet, it's serious. So that's being lost. When only the foreground, whatever happens in your life, and the foreground of your life includes thoughts and emotions, and external things. When that absorbs all your attention continuously, one thing after another, or as one of my favorite quotes, as Churchill said, one damn thing after another. He was talking about world history, but he could have been talking about the human mind. It's the same, it only reflects, the outer reflects the inner. One damn thing after another. One damn thought after another. And of course, nobody can argue with the fact that this is true, because if you read world history, you can see that it is one dreadful thing after another. And if you look at your own mind, when you're lost in it, it's not a pleasant place. Occasional pleasant thoughts can happen, and then quickly they turn around, losing another face. Like, dislike. Honeymoon, divorce. So being lost is a normal state. Lost out there, lost here. There's only that dimension then to your life. We could call it what happens. I'm only interested in what happens. And complaining about what's not happening but should be happening. Of course, not happening in the right way ever. And yet, there is in you a dimension that frees you from total identification with the world, which includes the mind. And when you become conscious of that dimension, that's presence. When I say conscious of that dimension, language creates a duality that isn't there. And that's what language does. Because you become conscious of that dimension as yourself, as the essence of who you are. So it's not two, one. And this begins simply by acknowledging, as we sit here, the dimension of silence, which is inner stillness. Simply to notice that there is, apart from the words, there is silence. In other words, the words are the foreground, the silence is the background.